Not really happy.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I rang up Mendenhall, he said he could make it.
Don't think this whole... Credit to the guy, he always manages to do well what he has to. He is a shocking person right now. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-bit.
No, well, like from Rashad Mendenhall.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the LOC Report, back again into another season. As you can see, unfortunately, as I say, Chris isn't here with me as we ran on a little long doing our other show, but hey, we still want to give you an LOC report each week, so I'm going to do a solo show for you. I'll aim to keep it fairly briefer, as I know you don't want to hear me droning on for ages and ages, so we'll just jump straight to it and go straight into the recaps. We obviously need some jingles to get us into the recaps though, don't we? So yeah, let's play the recap jingle. Okay, so we're going to do a bit more of a condensed recap format this season because, yeah, obviously we're doing the show, we're podcasting more, and to be honest, a few of you have always said that the more interesting thing about the LOC report is the previews, because we can all obviously go see what happened and things like that. Yeah, it's more, you're more interested in what we say about your team for the coming week. So we will just have a quick whiz through the games and everything. So just generally across the week in the picks, myself and Chris are both 5-1, and I think the game that I got wrong was the marquee matchup of last week, which was Oakland Bears against Pakistan. Obviously, Freddie unfortunately did struggle a bit in his debut in the league. He got smashed a bit by Pat, 110-70, but certainly is by no means a bad score. So don't worry too much about that, Freddie. Just looking down, obviously Richardson had a good day for him, but beyond that, there wasn't really too much to speak of. There'll be better days ahead. There's good reasons for why some of those guys there didn't perform, and he had some points on the bench too. For Pat, yep, really nice quick start, good day at the office, lots of points to goes around, looks like a strong team for him, so happy days, albeit we'll obviously come back to Tua in a bit. Ben Assisti's dream team. Now this is the marquee matchup of the week. My goodness. So point differential in this game, 0.24 of a point. I saw my dad earlier and he joked, is like, of course I would get that score and somehow still play the team that I would lose to in week one. I think these two both did have the highest scores in the week. Yep, both of these teams would have beaten everyone else, albeit we'll see in a sec when we did the standings and stuff. There was some really tight disparity of the highest scores of the week last week, but that's how it shakes. My dad does lose this one, but he's obviously off to a good start with the points forward. Viv takes it. Yeah, the funny thing was he got 6 points from Garrett Wilson on Monday Night Football, which was basically exactly what he needed, more or less, to get the win in this one, so he did win it. Obviously Lamar Jackson had a good day despite the loss. The kicker in D, though, that's the real story. This is why my dad should be pissed off, because Viv scumming 17 points from Kami Fairburn in what was a very high kicker scoring week, I will admit, and 26 points for the Vikings D, which we sort of laughed at in the preview last week, because Viv added the second defense to play instead of the Ravens, albeit obviously the horrendous matchup, dropped a player to do this. But to be fair, you know what, Viv? It won you the week, so I'll give it to you. Fair enough. Good day for my dad's team as well. So obviously he's looking good for the season there. Could be onto an RB1 there with Joe Mixon. My game against Mike, 100-70. Not really too much interesting to add in this game. I think Mostert was obviously a bit disappointing for me. And Amari Cooper got erased by Trevon Diggs. JSN, though, doesn't look like what we met. You know, Tyler Lockett's death was definitely exaggerated. He's seemingly the RB2. For my bench, some interest. I had J.K. Dobbins go off, and we'll come back to Jordan Mason in the waiver section in a bit, but yeah, J.K. Dobbins, I may have stumbled across a gem there. Ross's team, which was, we'll call it Strawberry Jamal, yeah, Strawberry Jamal, that's right. I'll get it the right way around this time, Ross. In week one, fairly close one with Tom's Torrance. 90-81 was the score, but Tom does take it. Jaden Daniels, looks like the strategy to wait for a quarterback absolutely paid off there for him, because yeah, he's going to be a locked and loaded QB1 until he gets killed, unless he learns to slide. Some other nice performances there. Kelsey and Amon Ross and Brown having quiet days, but they will have bigger days, so a good score, all things considered for Tom. For Ross, Burrow, yeah, that was pretty ugly. And we know Ross probably isn't going to bounce off the quarterback, so yeah, he'll have to be hoping that Burrow picks his game up, but we'll see. Ayuk had a quiet game too. With that contract dispute, obviously he was out of the preseason. He looked a bit rusty, but he'll come good. Stevenson had a really nice day, though. I mean, that was one of the surprises, I think, for all of us for week one, the Patriots doing as well as they did. I still don't think Stevenson's going to be a great option for the year, but he's going to be a volume-based option, which Ross is probably going to leave in his lineup, let's be honest. So he's reasonable enough. Tom was obviously without T. Higgins last week as well, but obviously didn't cost him the win. Forge Flyers beat Ixan in the Felix Bowl, so I guess this makes Chris Felix's real dad. Are we going with that? Let's go with it. 113 to 82. Very nice day by Chris. Obviously, he lost Jordan Love in this one, but at least he put him up 20 points on the board for him before he did it. Solid performances. Cowboys D getting 22 as well. Obviously, Chase didn't fire on the day, and they did Flowers, but solid day there. Kamara paid off as well. For Ben, obviously, Nakoa got injured in this one. Bit of a worry for him. We'll come back to the impact of that later. Obviously, Dak didn't do too much. They didn't need him to do too much against the Browns there. Metcalf got a raise by Satan as well. Honestly, it could have been a really ugly day if not for Saquon Barkley getting 31 and the kicker and the D sort of hiding some sins with 10 apiece there as well. So a bit worrying to start with for Ben. He's actually quite injured and Joko's injured. Marquise Brown's just gone on IR, which we'll come back to in the news section. So yeah, a bit of a worry there. For Chris, I forgot to say I locked up myself against Mike as well, so I absolutely smashed that. And the last game of the week, Great Scott against Magnet Kitchens, or actually they were Ren Kitchens last week. We'll come back to that in a bit. So yeah, Great Scott with a great week one there as well, 113 to 84. This was the one that Chris dropped, and not only did he drop it in his pick'em, he locked this game as well. So yeah, unfortunate, Chris. Of course, it's the one you missed on. I mean, the big thing here was obviously Christian McCaffrey being the surprise inactive for Ollie. It wouldn't have changed the result for sure, but yeah, that was a surprise that nearly cost him the week. Some other quiet performances there as well, and the Bears D hiding a lot of sins with that 28 at the bottom. For Great Scott, really good day at the office. Cooper Kupp, he's obviously locked into a really good pick there. It was a good pick, before Nico went down, but obviously with Nico going down, it's a really good pick. Jake Moody, 26, my goodness, that's why CMC not playing didn't matter, because Jake Moody goes and kicks, 5-6 field goals in the end? Yeah, ridiculous, 2 from 50. So can we just say about the bench as well, my goodness, Jameson Williams, Jaden Reed, and Xavier Worthy all blowing up on the bench there, so Great Scott perhaps looking like the early team of the season to beat, fresh off of obviously visiting the Corona Bowl in their first season in the league. So that's a really quick whistle-stop tour of the recaps for last week. Yeah, as I said, me and Chris are both 5-1 on the pick'em. I got my lock, Chris did not. We'll take a quick look at the around the league section and see if there's anything interesting here. So teams that started top 5 scoring quarterback are only 1 and 2. It's kind of interesting because we know quarterbacks really do have a big impact in our league. Great Scott left Jaden Reed on the bench. He accounted for 29 points, so that was the highest scoring bench player. And would have been the 5th highest individual amount in the league. Wow, that's crazy, but he won anyway, so who cares? Great Scott was also projected to win by the widest margin, 19 points, and they topped it with 29 points. Sorry there, Ollie. Players drafted in the first round averaged 11.82 points. Second round players were 11.32, and they were outperformed by third rounders, 11.72. I swear that's always the same, that statistic. It's hilarious. Pat beat their projections by a higher percentage than anyone else. They put up 110 points compared to the 82.59 projection. Fifth scored the highest with 113.72. There was 1,004.47 total points projected to be scored this week for an average of 83.71 per team. So there you go. That's the around the league section for this week. We will mosey straight on to the league news right now. So we'll start off with some injuries here. So Mostert has a chest injury from my team. It's unclear how much time exactly he'll miss. Mike McDaniel did say he's not a candidate for IR, which is, I mean, it's good news he's not going to go on IR, but bad news because that obviously suggests it could be more than a 1 week injury. but we'll see. My team may be able to withstand it, and to be honest, with the way Achan's going, maybe he won't be such a good fantasy option after all. T. Higgins obviously had that hamstring injury, which caused him not to play last week. He hasn't practiced so far this week, so he's looking very iffy again for this week, and hamstrings are tricky. He's become a bit of an injury prone player, so it could be beyond that. We mentioned Jordan Love for Chris injuring his knee. He's got a multi-week injury, despite what Matt LaFleur tries to say to everyone, keeping the door open for him to start this week, but he's not going to. But to be honest, if I had Malik Willis as my quarterback, I'd be cutting off chickens on the heads of chickens on the chance that Jordan Love could play as well. He'll miss at least a few weeks probably for Chris, so he'll be streaming quarterbacks. Puka Nacua sprained his MCL for Ben, so he's on IR now, so he'll miss a few weeks. CMC, obviously the calf Achilles injuries for Magnet Kitchens, Ollie's new team name. I love it, Ollie. Let's see how many weeks you can keep this up for. It's really unclear, this one. Supposedly he's going to miss this week, but time will tell, obviously. And then obviously the one that's sort of landed in the last couple of hours, Marquise Brown, he's now on IR. So he'll miss 4 weeks, and Ben's already got an IR spot occupied with Puka, so he's suffering the injuries big time early on in the season here. Transaction-wise, the first one I'm going to call out is Jordan Mason, because I absolutely scumbagged this completely by accident. I already was, but basically Monday I just decided I was going to drop the player. I was going to drop in waivers so I could just stash Ricky Pearsall on IR as insurance for Debo. After I did that, obviously I had a bench spot free, so I thought, I'll just add someone. Jordan Mason, he's the backup for the Niners, why not? Lo and behold, I obviously stumbled across the waiver out of the week with the CMC news, so yes, that's what we call failing upwards for sure. Elsewhere, Ixan added Baker Mayfield for $13 off of his hot start to the season. I think Dak obviously was a little quiet there in week 1, so he's just adding some options there. For $13, look, it's a reasonable ad. I think Baker, he showed last year with Tampa Bay, he could lead that offense and could put some points on the board. That's exactly what he did against week 1, but he's not going to play the Commanders every week, but he is still going to be a reasonable streaming option at quarterback, so that's fine. I added Isaiah Likely for $26, dropping Taysom Hill. Goodbye, Sweet Prince. I'm sure you'll be back on Gridiron Gang at some point this season. But Isaiah Likely, I spent the most on a waiver play this week with the $26. I actually did not need to spend $26. In fact, I didn't need to spend a single penny because as it happened, nobody else bid on him. It looks like an overbid, but equally with the blind bidding, you're sort of obviously bidding against yourself to a degree. He could have gone for some reasonable money in a lot of other leagues. He obviously has. After that crazy week 1, I'm not expecting him to repeat that, obviously, but I could see him really carving out a role as the Ravens' third option in the pass game. And, depending on how it shakes out, he looked really athletic. We know with Titans it takes him a few years to get going. He could be a really good option for them. So I obviously spent $26 to find out if that's going to be the case or not. So we'll see. So Chris, he added Matthew Stafford for $0 for Andrea Sivas, and then he dropped Matthew Stafford and had Jared Goff for $5 because Freddie dropped him. Look, we said he's going to need a streamer for the time that Jordan Love is out, and he plays the extremely beat up Buccaneers secondary this week, so it's a good ad in my opinion. Speaking of which, Freddie did drop Goff for the Chargers D, of which he spent $15. Ollie, I know I've been Freddie, I know I've been trying to give you some advice and help you out with learning the ropes of the league and stuff. Fair word of advice. Don't spend $15 on a defense. They should pay it off for you this week, but I think the next closest bid was mine and Pat. We both bid 3, so that's just for reference a learning point, but it's fine. You've got yourself a good defense this week at least. Freddie also added Jalen Warren for $12 and Tanks Bigsby for $5, dropping Romeo Dobbs and Jordan Addison. They're both reasonable ads. Like, I didn't want to drop Warren, but he obviously didn't really have a good start. Hard to know how much of that is him not being healthy, or if that is his actual role, because Arthur Smith is a troll. He's going to mix in Cordarrelle Patterson. Najee Harris looked, I thought, pretty good in week 1, and he's getting the volume as well, and that Steelers offense just slow and why. So I'm not really sure how much I want of it anyway. And Tank Bigsby, he had a much better day than ETN in terms of efficiency. Same amount of carries, 30 more yards. Didn't get the touchdown, but I really like that. Actually, it's a speculative move. And he's obviously a good handcuff there as well. So those were the key waiver moves that I had picked out this week. I don't think any is probably any of interest. Marcus Robinson got added by Pat. I like that add. He dropped Jalen Wright, so that's a good free agent add there for you. And Alec Pierce for Ben as well. That's a reasonably good dice roll there too. We'll go on to the standing stats and the milestones now. So in terms of the milestones, my dad has his 100th regular season loss, so congratulations there. Dad. Coach Scott got his 10th regular season win, so congrats to you. And obviously Freddie notched his first loss of the season. And nobody is on the trade block at the moment. Check out the power rankings when they land. We have no other news. I'm just going to dovetail back actually and tell you what the head-to-heads are now of the games. So obviously Freddie notched his first loss of the league against Pat, so Pat starts 1-0 against him. Ben Necessities against the Dream Team is now a bit closer, 12-11 in favour of Ben Necessity still, but with the Dream Team win. Gridiron Gang gets back in the trend. I'm now 3-5 all time against Mike, so again I'm digging myself out of that hole against you, Mike. Tom's Tyrants against Strawberry Jamal, Ross's team. 9-6 now in favour of Tom's Tyrants, so Tom's building up a bit of a lead there. Forward Flyers against Ixan. Chris owns Ben to the tune of 15-7 now. Gutted Ben. And for Great Scott against Ren Kitchens as it was last week. He's 2-1, so he takes the lead in that series. We're going to go on to Debate Corner now. I don't have the co-host today, so John Burko is in that chair. John, where are you, John? Order. Thank you, John. Yeah, he's getting in the order for our takeaway, which me and Becky will be getting very shortly after I finish this podcast. It's Indian tonight, John. Hope you like curry. So the debate corner for this week is who are you most high on and who are you least high on or lowest on after week one? Obviously, the changing in the guard since the draft. We've got a week of football now. How does that change the picture of our teams? Well, Nathan, I think it changes it this way. Oh, really, Nathan? Do you think that? Oh, that's very interesting. I'm going to make it a brief debate corner. I really like Jeff's team. I think he's gone up the most in my estimations. I mean, we spoke to the bench players that he has. That he had went off there. Jaden Reed, Xavier Worthy, and Jameson Williams. Obviously, Jaden Reed needs love to come back, but when he is back, I think he's going to be electric. Worthy's electric. He's got. I mean, this is the slender, speedy receiver team right here, really, isn't it? It's crazy. And this is how you win a draft. When you have good running backs like Pacheco and Hall, and you can then support them with these great receivers. He's obviously already got Cooper Kupp, who's again gained in value as well. Mike Evans. Yeah, Jeff's sitting really pretty now. So for me, Jeff is the team that has gone up the most in my expectations. For the team that I'm now the least high on, I think, I hate to say it, Ross, I had a look through it. And when I was kind of scanning through, when I was looking at your team, there was some parts of your team that I just wasn't too hot on. I mean, Burrow you would like to think comes good, but it's not looking great at the moment. Justin Jefferson had an okay day, but I'm still not fully convinced Darnold's going to be there. Ayuk's going to be fine once he gets up and running. Singletary is trash. ETN, yeah, if he's not... I mean, supposedly Pedersen said he's going to come out and they're still going to ride him, but obviously if Bixby eats into his role, it's not going to be great. Stevenson had a good week last week, but you definitely can't count on that every week. And then there is nothing on the bench, in a word. So unfortunately, Ross, I think your team is trending downward a bit. So that's my take on Debate Corner for the week. So we'll go on over to the previews now. So on the docket for this week, we have Gridiron Gang against Jerry Lee's Rice and Peas, which is Ross's new team name. Brilliant. Nicely done, Ross. Great Scott against Tom's Tyrants. Pat Stone against Forge Flyers. Oh, my team against Ross is AFC East Bowl and a Founder Bowl, by the way. Pat Stone against Forge Flyers. The Dream Team against Magnet Kitchens. That's Ollie's new team. Bucking the Trend against Ben Necessities. And Oakland Bears against Ixan. I normally give Chris the choice of obviously the marquee matchup of the week, and to be honest, I thought he'd be on it. So I have to pick one here, obviously. Let's go with Great Scott, Tom's Tyrants, because I think Great Scott, as I said, is the team with the most pop here heading into week 2. Both these teams won, obviously, in week 1 as well. So there's some interest in that matchup. Obviously, Great Scott coming off the Corona Bowl from the last season as well. So let's go with them. just before I move on to that, I did forget to do the standings and stats as part of the milestone standing and stats. That would be useful, wouldn't it? So let's whiz through that quickly. Southampton division, we had a intra, whatever it is, divisional game last week. The games were outside of the division, so we have 3 1-0 teams here. Forge Flies, Gridiron Gang, Tom's Tyrants in order on points, and then Magnet Kitchens in 0-1. Portsmouth division, we've got a split, 2 1-0s and 2 0-1s. Dream Team and the Pats down at top. And then Ixan against Bucking the Trend, both 0-1. And then Winchester Division, only one of these teams won, which is great. Scott 1-0, Ben Necessities, Jerry Lee, Rice and Peas, and Oakland Bears, all 0-1. Looking at the overall, we're just going to, this is obviously just sorted by points at the moment, but what I found really interesting is the 4 of the top scoring teams had between 110 and 113.72 points last week, so really tight at the top, and my team wasn't far off getting 100 there as well. We had a team that obviously went over 100 that ended up losing. As we said, that was my dad's team, but other than that, I think the wins and losses were distributed as you would expect. The breakdown obviously isn't so interesting at the moment, but the biggest adjustment there is my dad's team, who would have beaten everybody else except Piv. Classic. So yeah, exactly what you'd think. From a coach perspective, Jeff is at the bottom, understandably, because he had all those receivers go off. I'm second. J.K. Dobbins shared that. Half of that was Jordan Mason, which sort of doesn't count because I obviously just picked him up on a whim. But there you go. So, and then at the top, yeah, some really good 3 teams under 5 points on the bench last week, and Ross's team was at 5 as well. So again, some good points maximizations by the teams there. So yeah, we will now go to the marquee matchup, which is going to be Great Scott against Tom's Tyrants. Great Scott takes on Tom's Tyrants here. Both these teams 1-0. Great Scott leading their division at the moment. We've got some points on the board here as well already. 5.6 on Tom's Tyrants, but they are not projected to win. Oh no, that is Jeff's on 92 to 83. Let's take a look down the lineups for Great Scott. Jameson Williams comes into the lineup against that really banged up Tampa defense. Other than that, I believe they're unchanged, so that drops Jameson Williams, I think, to the bench. So he's going with the 20 personnel this week. 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for Tom's Tyrants, I believe Khalil Shakir has come into the lineup in favour of... Actually, I'm not sure, actually. Maybe Rashad White. He's got Khalil Shakir in his lineup. He got the 5.6 points. At the moment, he's got 21 personnel, 2 running backs, a tight end, and 2 receivers. The history of this matchup all time. Tom's Tyrants are 0-1 against Great Scott, so didn't beat them in their first game last season. So this week, I believe we're going out of the divisions again. So let's take a look down. So for Tom's team, obviously he'll be hoping Travis Kelce has a better day this week. Aaron Jones is a tougher matchup. He doesn't get to play the Giants every week, unfortunately. Jaden Daniels gets to play the Giants, though, so that's really nice. Amon Ross Brown obviously had a quiet week last week as well, so he's absolutely going to run rampant through that Bucs secondary, given how injured they are. Kyron Williams is going to be solid again, so it's shaping up quite nicely. He's got the Seahawks against New England. We'll see how much of New England last week was just Cincinnati having a bad day, or, you know, are they going to have a better day themselves? So I quite like how Tom's team shapes up this week. On the bench, I kind of agree with who he's benching. I like the bench of White as well. If you listen to the LOC Fantasy Show, he was my peasant of the week. I'm not too hot on him this week with how inefficient he was. But I think, yeah, the players that Tom has at his disposal, I think, makes sense. Going to the other side of the board, he's obviously got Kyler Murray against the Rams as well. It's really good. Evans against Detroit. It's reasonable. Cup, he's going to absolutely feast on that Cardinals D. If they can keep Matthew Stafford upright, that O-line is struggling at the moment. Jameson Williams in. Again, he should tear through this Bucs defense too. So obviously Tom will be hoping that it goes back a bit more to St. Brown. But Williams could have a nice day too. Pacheco should have a decent day, and as should Breece Hall. And then again, don't know what I think about the defense and the so much. Eagles against Atlanta. Depends what Kirk turns up. If he's the 36-year-old quarterback that very much looks like he tore his Achilles, then it's going to be good. But if he can shake off some rust, that could improve a bit. He's obviously sport for choice a little bit on the bench, albeit with the Jordan Love injury. The Jaden Reed bench makes sense. I'm not a fan of Javonte Williams. Completely endorse the benching there, especially in a tough matchup. So the Worthy, I see why he's benched him with the options he's got. He's the kind of guy that he'll either blow up in a week or he won't. So I think he's got some better options to play above a guy like that. But again, it wouldn't be surprising if he turned up on his bench there. So, shapes up reasonably well. Who do I think will win? I mean, Khalil Shakir, did disappoint a bit for Tom last night. 6 points from effectively your fifth option isn't going to kill you, so I don't mind that. I could see a bit of a squeaky wheel element for Kelsey this week and Amon-Ra St. Brown as well. It then comes down to how much points Jaden Daniels is going to put on the board against Kyler. They probably offset each other, to be honest. Kyron should have a good day. It's a tough one. It's really tough, this one. I think I'm going to use the defense as the kicker here. I'm going to go with Tom's Tyrants because I don't fully believe, being a Patriots fan, in our offense, especially not repeating what we did last week. They could have a much better day. They trolled Denver last week. I think that's the difference here because the teams shape up reasonably well. I think the skill positions maybe are a bit better for Great Scott. Probably better, to be fair, but I'm still going to go with Tom's Tyrants, I believe here. But yeah, wouldn't surprise me to see a Great Scott win here either. We'll go on to our next game now. Pakistan takes on Forge Flyers here in week 2, and boy, Pakistan is off to a hot start because they're already up 62 to nothing. They have had 4 players play in this Thursday night game. That's quite incredible. Both of them are 1-0. Pat is obviously projected to win here, 102 to 89, but I don't think it's necessarily completely over. But let's take a look. So for Pakistan, Tua Tagovailoa started at quarterback. He only got 8 points. He was having a rough day, obviously, even before he obviously unfortunately left the game with a concussion. Waddle only got 5, but it's fine when he's got the running backs of both the Bills and the Dolphins, who combined for 50 points between them, 28 for Cook and 23 for Devon Achane. So yeah, very nice indeed. On the other, in terms of changes, I believe Pat is unchanged since last week. The only one that might have changed is Mark Andrews, but I don't think he is. So he's going with 30 personnel, 3 running backs, 2 receivers. On the other side of the board for Chris, Jared Goff obviously comes in for the injured Jordan Love. And then I believe he is unchanged beyond that. So he is rocking the 30 personnel, 3 running backs and 2 wide receivers as well. The history of this matchup all time, Forge Flyers are 3-8, oh boy, against Pakistan all time. So yeah, Chris already up against it. The numbers don't lie, as we know, with Forge Flyers against Igsan. But let's take a look at the players who haven't played for Pat first. CD going against New Orleans, even though Lattimore's there, not too concerned with that. Hopefully another week on the practice field for CD will help him get the rust knocked off. Connor's going to be a good option against the Rams too. As long as he's not injured, he'll be there. I don't like Evan McPherson as a kicking option this week for Pat. And the Chiefs D against Cincinnati, I do kind of like that one though, to be fair, because I am very much happy to double down and assume that the Bengals are going to struggle again. So Pat's sitting pretty good at the moment. Looking for Chris though, he does have a really juicy matchup with Jared Goff against that Bucs defense. I think they could pass it a lot in this one. With how ravaged that secondary is, so that's obviously going to make up for Tua's shortcomings here. Chase, you think, would have a better day against the Chiefs, but we got to see Joe Burrow play well, I think. Zay Flowers against the Raiders. He needs to get involved early, I think, because the Ravens could just troll the Raiders in this one. But it's a reasonably good option. Kamara against Dallas, as much as Chris enjoyed the Kamara show last week. He may struggle a bit more against the Dallas, but if he's going to get the volume, he's got a reasonably good floor. Kenneth Walker might not play. He's got that abdominal injury. He might be a bit limited if he does. New England's defense showed that they've maybe got something about them. Barmore's now not there at the moment, so the run defense isn't quite as strong as it could be. So he's an okay option if he plays. Gibbs against Tampa Bay. Look, even if Detroit are passing, he should still be quite involved. Has a good shot at a touchdown as well. Could even get a receiving touchdown, which Chris would very much enjoy. So he's reasonably good there. Dicker, love that against Carolina because the Chargers should clam the Panthers if the Panthers play like they did last week. And the Cowboys D against anyone is pretty good. But yeah, they're going to put Derek Carr in his place for sure. Who do I like for this one? I think I'll go... I'm not going to lock it. It's well out the lock zone. Obviously, the mirror would absolutely shatter and scar my face if I locked Pat up here. But you can't go away from 62 points on the board, especially with some of the players, or the couple of players skill position-wise that Pat still has. I do think Chris can make it interesting still. I could absolutely see a scenario where, you know, he can make up this difference. If he has a good quarterback score, that's obviously going to help. But yeah, it would be foolish to pick anyone else other than Pat so far. So I'm just going to note these down as well for the recap show next week. That would the recap part of the show next week. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? So Ennis picks Pat on this one, and in the other one, I obviously picked Tom's Tyrants. Yeah, that's it for this one. We'll go on to the next game now then, and yeah, I'll cue the music to do that. The Dream Team takes on Magnet Kitchens here. Dream Team is currently leading the league, obviously with 1-0 and the points edge over everybody else. Magnet Kitchens 0-1 projections. So this one is going to go the way of Viv, a 90-85. Let's take a look at the lineups. For the Dream Team, I believe he is unchanged this week. Yeah, I've not seen anyone who would have brought in over anyone else, so he's going with the 10 personnel, 1 running back, 4 wide receivers. For Magnet Kitchens, let's take a look down. I think he's brought Tony Pollard in for Chuba Hubbard, and obviously Christian McCaffrey. He comes in, I think, in favour of, he comes out, in favour of, I think it's either Terry McLaurin or I think it's Terry McLaurin. Obviously McCaffrey will very much go back in should he plays, but yeah, understandable bench at the moment. So he's going with the 20 personnel, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time, the Dream Team are they are 7-2 all time against You Are Gold. So yeah, he typically has You Are Gold's number. Let's take a look down the lineups. I mean, Jackson against the Raiders. Yeah, it's going to be a lolathon. He's just got to hope that they don't run it with Derrick Henry every play. Brown against Atlanta, it's good. Wilson against Tennessee, like that. Although L'Jarius Sneed could make it interesting, but I could still see Garrett Wilson having a reasonable day. Devontae Adams against Baltimore. It's not the best, but you know, if they're going to be losing, they're going to be catch up, maybe some garbage time. Devontae Adams could have an okay day. Love Najee Harris against Denver this week. I think the Steelers are going to try and run the ball as much as possible, and they'll probably be playing with a lead, so he's good. Tank Dell against Chicago as well. Look, we like this Texans offense. It's just going to be, you know, a divvy up of who gets the points and things each week. Obviously, Diggs got the touchdowns last week, and Dell was sort of left out in the cold. But Dell could obviously be much more involved this week. In terms of the bench options, yeah, I'd have Viv's lineup if I had his team as well, so that makes sense. Ravens against the Raiders for a defensive perspective as well is great. Fairbairn's a good option against Chicago as well, so Viv is sitting pretty nicely this week. For Ollie, Jalen Hurts against Atlanta, yep, nothing wrong with that, that's nice. Drake London against Philly. We're going to have to see what Kirk looks like. I think he can still have a reasonable game, even if Kirk isn't great. If Kirk is playing better, that's obviously good news for Drake London. So we'll see. Rashee Rice, solid option against Cincinnati as well. You just want a slice of this Chiefs offense at the moment. So he's good. Terry McLaurin should absolutely truck the Giants. He obviously narrowly missed on that big touchdown last week, which would have completely changed his day. Yeah, he should feast on the Giants' terrible secondary this week. I kind of like Pollard against the Jets here as well. I think he's, for now, the lead running back. I know Brian Callahan sort of spoke about evening up the share between him and Tajay Spears, but if he's running pretty well, he's started in Dallas, I don't see why they'd get away from him. They do have to worry about game script a little bit. If they do fall behind the Jets, we could see a bit more Spears, but the Jets just got absolutely trashed by Jordan Mason, so that bodes nicely as well. Jerome Ford against Jacksonville, it's a solid option too. I like that. Do not like the Bears against Houston though. Get another defense, mate. Butker, the misogynist against Cincinnati, that's a reasonable option. Obviously, if McCaffrey is out there, Ollie does get a massive boost, but to be honest, I quite like how he sets up at the moment. If he got a better defense, I would absolutely love him. I may have even locked him. I'm going to pick him this week, I think. I think I do just like his team just a little bit more than Viv's team, but Viv is setting up quite nicely here too. But yeah, for me, I can just see a little bit more upside there. I think there's some slightly better matchups, a bit more consistency, even though he didn't get quite the same amount of points obviously in week 1. So yeah, I'm going to pick Ollie to win this one here and get his first win of the season, and that'll take us on to our next game. Bucking the trend, taking on Ben Estes here. Both these teams searching for their first win. One of these feels justifiably hard done by with their score last week. That's Ben Estes. The other is not too disappointed with considering the score, but they did reasonably well there in week 1 anyway. The projections have this going in favour of bucking the trend, 91 to 78. There is points on the board, 12 points to 8 in favour of bare necessities. Let's start off on that side of the board. Josh Allen only got 12 points last night, so not the best output in a game they obviously comfortably beat the Dolphins in. In terms of the rest of the lineup, I believe my dad's team is unchanged. So he is going with the 31 personnel at the moment, 3 running backs, a tight end and a receiver. For bucking the trend, let's see, changes wise, I don't believe he's changed at the moment either. He maybe dropped DeAndre Swift out of his team. I'm not sure in favour of who exactly though, maybe Stephon Diggs, not sure, but he's going with the 20 personnel this week. 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all the time, Ben Estes are 3-4 against bucking the trend, so a pretty close one. So looking down, let's stick on Mike's side to begin with. So he got the 8 points from Tyler Bass. That's a reasonably good output. Somehow offsetting Josh Allen, so that's nice. But yeah, Pat Mahomes against Cincinnati. Wouldn't surprise me if he has a better day than he did in week 1. He had 16 points, which was reasonable. But yeah, he could go bananas here if the Bengals turn up and play the way they did against the Patriots. Don't like Amari Cooper in this one. It's more about Deshaun Watson. I just don't know. He's the kind of guy that he'll pop up and you'll probably bench him on that game, but and you play him and he probably won't do so well. But I don't know. I see why he's playing him. In terms of his other options, I'm not necessarily sure there's someone you would bench him for. So it's fair enough. Diggs against Chicago. He's obviously going to be hoping that he gets involved again. The touchdowns did hide a lot of sins for Stephon Diggs, though. The ADOT, average depth of target, the involvement, the yards were not great last week. The touchdowns did a lot of the heavy lifting, so he's going to be hoping that happens again. I like Jacobs, despite playing with Malik Willis. He's going to get all the volume, and they're going to try and make it a game where they can win just by running the ball. I know he's a little banged up at the moment, but I wouldn't worry too much there. Bijan, I mean, it's got to get better, right? Bijan just needs a functional team, so he can absolutely thrive. He's going to be fine. If Kirk shakes up some rust, he could be great. JSN, I would definitely bench. I know Mike doesn't necessarily have a good option to bench him for. I'd probably play Swift over him. It seems like Tyler Lockett's obviously the receiver to own above him. So I had JSN last year and it's quite frustrating. Jets D I like against Tennessee though, so that's reasonable. On the other side of the board, so I said about Josh Allen only getting the 12 points. It was just a comfortable game. They didn't really need Josh Allen to do Josh Allen things. Michael Pittman against Green Bay, not too hot on that. He could be okay, but if the Colts just lead this game, they're probably just going to run it. He might not be that involved. Sam Laporta should have a nice bounce back here. Henry should do well against the Raiders. Mixon's a bell cow, solid RB1, even if he is playing the Bears defense. Tampa Bay against David Montgomery as well. I think they're going to pass it a bit more this week, so it wouldn't surprise me to see him not be as heavily leaned on as he was in week 1. But both the backs were quite used by Detroit there. But he's still got a fairly good chance of punching in a touchdown. So he's an okay option, but I'm not too excited by him. Wouldn't surprise me if my dad did look to bring Brian Robinson in potentially, although he can't really. You can't bring Brian Robinson, I think, over any of those 3 guys. So yeah, my dad's team probably going to be as it is. In terms of who I think is going to win this one, I could see it being a bit of a low score, I'm going to give the edge. Oh my god, where do you go? Because my dad's got Henry and Joe Mixon who could explode. David Montgomery is a reasonably good option as well. I just don't like the receiving options that much. I don't really like the Browns D against the Jags either. Whereas for Mike's team, I don't think there's quite as much there in the skill positions. Certainly not with JSN in the lineup. But he's got Pat Mahomes. Jets defense against Tennessee could be funny. I'm gonna lean with Pat here. I'm gonna lean with Mike here. I think Patrick Mahomes has a big day. The skill position should give him enough points to get over the line here and get the win against my dad and level up the series. We'll go on to the next game now. Oakland Bears takes on Ixan, still searching for not only their first win of the season, but first win of their career. Ixan has many wins in his career, but doesn't need a first win of the season. The projections have this being a bit of a nail-biter, 82.87 to 82.45. Looking down the lineups for Ixan, let's see at the moment. I think he might be, well, he's bench Puka, obviously. And I think he's probably brought in George Pickens and Chris Godwin maybe. Chris Godwin instead. Not entirely sure who, but obviously Puka's on the bench. So at the moment he's rolling with the 20 personnel, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for Oakland Bears, let's see, Tanks Bigsby comes straight into the lineup from the waiver wire, replacing, I think, Dalton Kincaid. Which isn't the worst of moves, to be quite honest there. So Freddie is going with the 20 personnel as well, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. Obviously, there's no history between these two, so we can just remove the matchup as it is. Let's start on Freddie's side of the board. Anthony Richardson to be good again. He could absolutely troll the Packers. Smith should be okay against Atlanta. Do not like Chris Olave this week. He could get absolutely erased by Trayvon Diggs. Jonathan Taylor's good. Obviously, that Indy backfield ties up nicely. Tank Bigsby, I understand why he's thrown him in. He got some fairly good carries last week. I wouldn't be, if it were me, I'd be maybe more tempted to roll out Shaheed and just chance that he gets a big play, or they lose it and he gets some garbage production or something like that. I don't know. I need to see another week at Bigsby to see what kind of usage he's going to have. If he's going to have that usage each week and can maybe get a touchdown here and there, it's quite nice, but I just don't really see the upside there at the moment. Do like Marvin Harrison, however, he could have a big bounce back after a slow week 1. I need to point out, if you've not seen Freddie's picture, it's of Marvin Harrison where he was wide open down the field and he didn't get the ball. The photo was a bit misleading. I thought it was just that Murray didn't see him, Murray didn't throw it, what have you. Apparently Murray was rolling out to the other side of the field, and in the position he was in, it would have been very difficult for him to uncork it and throw it to him where he was, but it's still pretty funny all the same. But he should bounce back in this one. Tucker's okay against the Raiders. Don't love it because they could just get loads of touchdowns. Do love the Chargers D for Carolina. I hope you didn't spend more money than points than they generate for you, but I'm pretty sure they can get more than 15 points there, so that's good. Looking at Ben's side of the board, obviously Prescott had a bit of a quieter week 1. Obviously he was just getting a bit of a rusty CD back. Could be better as early as this week against the Saints. DK Metcalf, he got erased by Satan last week. Could get erased by Christian Gonzalez again. He just shut down Jamar Chase, so not too hot on him this week. Speaking of Patrick Surtain, he's going to absolutely have George Pickens in his pocket. He better remember to take him out before he gets home and empties his keys from his pocket and finds George Pickens in there as well. Chris Godwin, he could have a solid day against Detroit. I understand why he's chucked him in. He looks pretty solid there with Baker in week 1. Looks like he might be back. If this offense is good, this could be a bit of a shootout, so that's fine. Saquon Barkley, yep, great option. Don't need to add any more there. Do not like Zamir White against the Ravens, with Alexander Mattison obviously getting some work, taking the passing down value away from Zamir White. I'm not really sure what you've got with him there, so don't like that option. Elliott's okay against Atlanta, and the Niners D against the Vikings is fine too. For Iowa Ben, I'd probably chuck in Brandon Cooks and see what I have there over Zamir White for sure. And then I don't think really you can realistically then take in Carson Steele or Alec Pierce over George Pickens or DK Metcalf. So I think he's stuck with those guys. Who do I like to win this one? It's a tough choice. Again, I could see it being a bit of a grittier, low-scoring game. I'm going to go with Freddie. I'm going to pick Freddie here. Freddie in a big spot to get his first win and send Ben to 0-2. I think quarterback-wise, he's got the edge. I think skill position-wise, I see a bit more upside. He's got some tough ones, obviously, as well, like Ben does with Metcalf and Pickens. He's got Olave to worry about, and I'm not too hot on Bigsby. It could be about Saquon Barkley. If Saquon Barkley has a big day, it could turn the tide for Ben. I think he's going to need that. to make a difference with the current lineups as they are. But yeah, I'm going to lean Freddie for the win in this one. And then we get to the last game of the week, which is this one. Gridiron Gang plays Jerry Lee's Rice and Peas, which is Ross's team here. Gridiron Gang 1-0, Ross's team at 0-1. The projections have this going to Gridiron Gang 82 to 82.33 to 81.82, so fairly close one. A little bit of points on the board already, 3.6 for Gridiron Gang and 4 for Ross's team, so let's see how it shakes. So for Gridiron Gang, J.K. Dobbins and Jordan Mason come into the lineup at present over Christian Kirk and Raheem Mostert, who was inactive last night. So I am rolling with the 20 personnel, 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers currently. On the other side of the board for Ross's team, I believe he is unchanged at the moment, so he is rolling with the 30 personnel, 3 running backs and 2 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time. Gridiron Gang are 8-7 against Ross's team, so fairly close in the series. So let's start off with my team, CJ Stroud against Chicago. It's obviously a more tougher matchup than last week, but yeah, he could still have a good day. The offense is just so stacked. Yeah, he should still be a reasonable option. Tyreek Hill obviously only got 4 points last night, so I was obviously hoping for a lot more than that, so that's not so good. Devo against Minnesota, that's okay. Dobbins against Carolina. I mean, if they play Chargers play like they did last week and he plays like he does, he can absolutely roll through them. Nico Collins against Chicago again, the stack with CJ Stroud. It could be a bit of a rotating game, but Nico figures to be the more stable option, so hopefully he'll be okay. Jordan Mason, assuming CMC sits, is obviously a great option here as well. Really doubling up on the Texans and the Niners here. Aubrey, I love me some Brandon Aubrey. You guys all know I love Brandon Aubrey. I want to be the only player, only team he knows in the LOC, and the Colts do against Green Bay with Malik Willis could be absolutely hilarious. Lineup wise, I'm not really considering making any changes at this point. Obviously, if CMC plays, I will probably chuck in DJ Moore, and if Collins sits, obviously as well, potentially Christian Kirk there also. Yeah, team's setting up fairly okay despite Hill's score for Ross's team. He got the 4 points from Jason Sanders. Joe Burrow against KC. What Joe Burrow are we going to see? Because if we see the Joe Burrow last week, that's not going to be great. I think the Bengals are going to be losing this game. He could have a bit of catch-up element. I don't know. It's a tough game. I'm not too hot on Joe Burrow this week. Justin Jefferson against San Fran. It's Justin Jefferson. He's a solid option even with whatever version of Sam Darnold we get. Ayuk, he could have some more rust knocked off this week and do a bit better than he did in week 1. Obviously, we've got the San Francisco receiver off here with Debo on the other side. Don't like Devin Singletary against Washington. I know the D is bad, but God, the Giants suck. Travis Etienne, it's not the best of matchups, but the coaches kind of said they need to commit to him a bit more. So he's a reasonable option here. Stevenson, again, he's a volume-based option. If he gets a touchdown, he'll have a fairly good day. But against Seattle, I'm not completely convinced this Patriots team is as good as they performed in week 1 there either. Steelers against Denver is a really nice matchup there too. And then options on the bench, he could go Charbonnet. If over Singletary, if Kenneth Walker sits, that would be a pretty nice change. But other than that, I think I'd probably agree with how Ross has it at the moment. Who do I think is going to win? Given I'm down my first overall pick effectively because he only got 4 points, I think it's a tough one. It really all hinges on Joe Burrow for me. If Joe Burrow has a good day, I think Ross takes this one. If he doesn't, I think the door is open for me to take it. But I'm going to go... I locked my own team last week, and I haven't used the lock yet, so I have to use it here. So I'm going to lock Ross's team. Let's assume... I will assume Joe Burrow is back to being Joe Burrow, has a better day. And then the rest of the team, there's some decent performances there. And maybe I could see a couple of guys on my team not performing. Again, Stroud might not have the best of days either. So, yeah, let's go with it. I'm going to lock Ross's team here again. It could be an interesting game, this one. And maybe a bit of the lower scoring variety potentially as well. But if I have Jordan Mason and Dobbins go off, that could be quite nice. And then, yeah, some of the other guys too could make the difference. That's it for the previews. I did none of the injuries as I was going along, so I'm going to whiz back and do that quickly. Collins has an illness, so I'll have one to keep an eye on, but usually players play through illness, so hopefully he'll be fine for Sunday. Ross's team of relevant players, he's got a clean bill of health. Let's go to Great Scott Tops Tyrants. Jameson Williams, he's been limited, but he should play. T. Higgins, I think I've covered. He's probably not going to play with that hamstring injury. For Pat, obviously the 2 concussion going forward, but that's over and done with this week. Kenneth Walker, highly questionable for Chris's team. He needs to get at least a limited in today, I think, to have a chance of playing. Obviously, Jordan Love, very doubtful to play as well. Viv's team, Ramadinze, probably not going to play with his knee injury. Yeah, CMC, I have no idea. It sounds like he's going to sit, but we'll have to see. Malik Neighbours picked up a knee injury as well, or he popped up with a knee injury on the injury report yesterday, so that's definitely one to keep an eye on. For bucking the trend, Josh Jacobs, questionable with a back injury, but he should be fine. Josh Palmer isn't relevant, so that's okay. Keenan Allen, quite iffy. He hasn't practiced with his heel injury. Again, he's a veteran. He can play without much practice. I think he'll need at least a limited today to play as well. Lockett, I think he has some sort of leg injury, but I don't think he's in danger of missing the game. And then Oakland Bears, they're fine injury-wise, obviously. For Ben's team, Marquise Brown now on IR, so he's definitely not playing, and that is the quick injury lowdown. And that brings us to the end of the show. So yeah, sorry it was a solo one, sorry it was a bit quicker than normal. Hope you still enjoyed it. We may have people around on Sunday again, so I will drop it into the chat if you're welcome to come over and watch the games if you would like to do so. Other than that, that brings us to the end of the show. So I will simply wish that you have a great weekend. Of course, best of luck in your matchups, unless you're playing me, of course, Ross. Goodbye, everybody.